What do you make of that optimism from the foreign minister of Iran?
George, it's good to be on with you. Iran is a anti-American, terrorist-sponsoring outlaw regime that's killed thousands of Americans from Beirut to Iraq to Afghanistan. And that video that Javed Zarif, their foreign minister, posted over the weekend with its smug, condescending tone shows just how far down the path we've gone towards Iran's position. Iran was negotiating from a position of weakness. And this is not just two businesses negotiating together. This is not like Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks trying to reach a contract that makes everyone happy. Iran should have faced a simple choice. They dismantle their nuclear program entirely, or they face economic devastation and military destruction of their nuclear facilities. Yet, as that video shows, they think they're negotiating from a position of strength and that they hold all the cards.
He goes on to say that those like you who believe that Iran will submit to economic and military coercion are delusional.
If that's the case, they wouldn't have come to the negotiating table to begin with in November. It was actually both the fact of sanctions in 2013 and the threat of even tighter sanctions that drove them to the negotiating table. That's why we shouldn't have let up those sanctions. We should have insisted on the very simple terms that President Obama himself proposed at the outset of this process. Iran dismantles its nuclear program entirely, and then they will get sanctions relief.
What negotiation process are you watching? Because everything you're calling for is part of what they already did. He's like, Iran needs to dismantle their nukes or face economic sanctions. Yeah, that's exactly what happened in the deal. That's exactly what happened. They are dismantling any weaponized nuclear program, and in return, we are going to lift sanctions gradually. So everything you're calling for is something that they already did. Again, and what the fuck does he mean? Like, okay, so when they say, we're going to come to the table, Tom Cotton just said, well, I would go a step further. When they come to the table, I would say, keep the sanctions on. But wait, so they come to the table and they're talking to you, but you want to continue to put more sanctions on? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Then what incentive would they have to come talk to you if they know that when they come talk to you, you're going to put more sanctions on them? What you're doing is disincentivizing them coming to talk to you, because they know if we go talk to them, they're going to sanction us more. Why the fuck would we talk to them? So half the shit he's saying is just agreeing with Obama when he thinks he's disagreeing with Obama, and the other half the shit he's saying just makes no fucking sense at all. So I like when he talks about how, Iran, terrorists, they're killing Americans. The fuck are you talking about? Do you have any idea what Iran is primarily doing right now when it comes to fighting? They're fighting a little group named, what is it again? I can't remember. ISIS! ISIS, you jackass! The radical, fundamentalist, Sunni Wahhabists, the extremists, okay, they are being fought by the Shias in Iran. But see, this goes back to the fundamental problem with guys like Tom Cotton and other Republicans, is they know jack shit about the Middle East. He doesn't know anything about the Middle East. It's not just him, it's a bunch of others too. Duncan Hunter was another one. Sometimes Netanyahu says this, but he's just more lying. He's not as big of an idiot as much as he's just a liar, where they'll try to conflate ISIS and Iran. They'll act like they're working basically the same thing. It's like they're working together, really. Except fucking Iran is Shia, ISIS is Sunni, and they're mortal enemies. And fucking hello, newsflash: the people in ISIS, their number one enemy is the Shias. They want to get rid of the Shias before they even look at the West, before they even get involved with any Westerners, who, of course, they also want to kill. But that's further down the list, is my point. Their main focus is, look at one of the main things they're doing right now. They're trying to take out Assad, the Shia Alawite leader in Syria. And they're fighting Shia militias, Iranian Shia militias as well. So this idea that you try to lump them together, and what's Tom Cotton totally ignoring also? The history between the U.S. and Iran. When he says something like, they're bad people, they're terrorists, they're killing Americans. What about when we, in 1953, overthrew their democratically elected leader, their prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, and we put into place the Shah? The Shah had total control. He became a dictator of the country. Now, why did they do it? It's very important. They didn't just do it for shits and giggles. They did it because they knew that the Shah would give the West, Great Britain and the U.S., all of the oil. So if they give us the oil, then what are they going to continue to do? Keep their people in their country poor. So people in Iran knew what was going on. They saw exactly what happened. They know it was the CIA that overthrew Mohammed Mossadegh, who planned to nationalize the oil industry and give them a little money so they could be middle class. They saw exactly what happened. The U.S., Western governments went in there, toppled him, put in the Shah. The Shah stole all the resources of the country, gave it to the West, and all the people continued to be poor. That's what led to the religious revolution in 1979. And if you knew history, if you gave a shit about history, then you would realize that, and what would you do? What would any intelligent person do if you're a head of state today and you're dealing with Iran and you're in the U.S.? Number one, right when you sit down at the table, you got to acknowledge history with them. Say, look, man, our bad. It wasn't us that did it back then. It was a different government at a different time. So let's work together. Let's find some common ground here. We'll get rid of all these economic sanctions. You just have to prove that you're not building a nuclear weapon. And that's exactly what John Kerry and President Obama are doing. And by the way, the terms of the deal thus far are fucking fantastic. We went over them with a fine-tooth comb when the framework of the deal was laid out. What we know for sure is the IAEA is going to be up the fucking ass of the Ayatollah. Okay, the IAEA can look whenever they want at any facility they want, and there's hard caps on how much they can enrich uranium. And they're only allowed to enrich it so that they can do research and that they can have power for their power grid for their citizens. Anything above that, which you need to go way above that to make a nuke, is not allowed. And they're going to have inspectors up their ass making sure that they don't do it. So everything else that he argues for, which is like, well, they need to dismantle their nuclear weapons program or else, we should continue to do sanctions. Mission accomplished, asshole! Have you read the fucking deal? You're out there saying, oh, Obama bad, John Kerry bad. But meanwhile, half the shit you're advocating for is exactly what they got. Okay? And the other half the shit is just made up, like you pretending like America never did anything wrong to Iran, and you pretending like Iran is not fighting ISIS and is not a significantly much more moderate force in the region than ISIS and other radical Sunnis.